You are watching Shalom World News. I'm David Kerr from Lansing in Michigan, and these are your latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis has expressed his heartfelt solidarity and spiritual closeness with the people of India, who are currently suffering due to an aggressive resurgence of the COVID-19 pandemic. In a letter addressed to Cardinal Oswald Gracias, the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, the Holy Father assured all Indians of his prayers and expressed a hope that God will grant healing and consolation to everyone affected by this grave pandemic. The pontiff also remembered all those who are mourning the loss of their loved ones and prayed for doctors, nurses, hospital workers and paramedics. He also commended all the faithful, especially priests who have succumbed to the virus, to the infinite mercy of God. One of Sweden's most prominent hospitals says it will no longer prescribe puberty-blocking drugs or cross-sex hormones to under-16s who are suffering with gender dysphoria. The Karolinska University Hospital in Stockholm say their decision was taken due to concerns about the long-term effects of such drugs and therapies, as well as doubts about the ability of children to give fully informed consent to such life-altering treatment. Instead, medics will now provide children with gender dysphoria with both psychological and psychiatric care. The hospital's decision has been publicly praised by Dr. Ryan Anderson, who is the president of the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C., and the author of the best-selling book on gender dysphoria, When Harry Became Sally. He is now calling for legislation to prevent adults from interfering with a child's normal, natural bodily development. The state of Texas in the US is now one step closer to enacting a law that will restrict abortion after a fetal heartbeat has been detected. The state's House of Representatives passed Senate Bill 8, also known as the Fetal Heartbeat Bill, on Thursday by 83 votes to 64. The proposed legislation would prevent doctors from performing abortions after a heartbeat has been detected in the womb. That occurs around the 5th week of pregnancy. The bill would also permit any resident of Texas to sue a doctor who performs an abortion or anyone who assists procuring an abortion after a heartbeat is detected. Meanwhile, pro-life lawmakers in Iowa have put forward a proposed amendment to their state constitution that would prevent recognizing abortion as a legal right. The so-called Protect Life Amendment seeks to nullify a 2018 decision by the state Supreme Court, which ruled that women have a fundamental right to decide whether or not to abort their unborn child. The proposed amendment is supported by the Catholic bishops of Iowa, who say it would ensure that the state's constitution remains abortion neutral. Before being put to a statewide vote, the proposed constitutional amendment has to be approved by 2 consecutive legislative sessions. Around 200 international organisations have appealed to the United Nations Security Council to place an embargo on sales of weapons to Myanmar. Since the country's military seized power in February from its democratically elected government, some 769 people have been killed by security forces, including 50 children, during peaceful protests against the ruling junta. In response, the global organisations issued a statement on May the 6th seeking immediate UN intervention to prevent further loss of life. Although the UN Security Council has issued several statements regarding the military coup, including calling for restoration of democracy, its voice has been weakened by continued vetoes from Russia and China. Both countries are reported to be 2 of the biggest arms suppliers to the Myanmar regime. Back to the United States now, where the Diocese of Charleston in South Carolina has spoken out against the death penalty in response to the southern state approving new ways to execute death row inmates. This week saw South Carolina's lawmakers vote to allow firing squads and electrocution as methods of capital punishment. Up until now, all executions in South Carolina have been carried out by lethal injection. However, as the death penalty continues to be subject to widespread national and international criticism, many drug companies have decided to stop selling such lethal drugs to US states. Hence, South Carolina has not proceeded with any prisoner execution since 2011. In a statement, the Diocese of Charleston say that it is time to abolish the death penalty and not to seek new ways of execution. Currently, there are 37 people on the state's death row who have exhausted the appeals process. A bipartisan group of US congressmen are appealing to President Joe Biden to address growing concerns over religious persecution across the world. In a letter addressed to the president, signed on May the 4th, a total of 8 congressmen said that the US should continue to play a leading role in responding to religious persecution worldwide. They made a particular note of the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, oppression of Uyghur Muslims in China, and the genocide against Christians and Yazidis in both Syria and Iraq at the hands of Islamic State. The letter's signatories urge President Biden to fill vacant posts in the administration which are responsible for monitoring global religious freedom. They also suggest having an ambassador at large or envoy to lead the International Religious Freedom Office within the State Department, as well as appointing a director for international religious freedom within the US National Security Council. As the people of Argentina prepare to celebrate the feast of the nation's patroness, Our Lady of Luján, Pope Francis has been offering some spiritual solidarity with the clergy and the lay faithful of his home country. In a video message released on May the 6th, the Holy Father said that he would join his compatriots in praying for the health and well-being of the Argentine people. The pontiff exhorted them to remember all that the Holy Virgin has accomplished for their homeland. To mark her feast day on Saturday, May the 8th, the Basilica of Our Lady of Luján in the capital city of Buenos Aires will lead a global rosary marathon seeking divine intervention for an end to the COVID-19 pandemic. The statue of Our Lady of Luján was solemnly crowned on behalf of Pope Leo XIII in 1886. And in 1930, Pope Pius XI declared Our Lady of Luján the patroness of Argentina, Uruguay and Paraguay. Well, that's all your latest headlines for now. Do join us for more tomorrow. You can also visit us at swnews.org for news updates. Shalom.